everyone, welcome back to the City Project. Today, I want to pick up where we left off last episode and continue building this university campus, but I also want to address a little bit of a problem that has sprung up with this build, and that involves this horrendous staircase. Oh my goodness, I'm looking at this and I'm getting out of breath. And that kind of highlights a bigger issue with this university, which is accessibility. In that this university is not at all accessible for anyone but the most fit human beings, because these blocks being a cubic meter and this staircase being as tall as it is, you can imagine it's quite tough to get up, especially if your legs don't work quite right. So, what I want to do this episode at some point is to fix that and make this area on top of the hill somewhat accessible to everyone. And I've got some ideas that I'm going to present later on, but first I want to work a little bit on the middle of the courtyard, because I think if we have this outlined, it's going to be easier to make the campus as a whole more accessible. Before we move on, my cat would like to say a few words. Go on, tell them. Tell them I make you starve. You little liar. Yeah, that's right. Anyways, yeah, I was left a little bit unsupervised and went overboard. I didn't include all this in the time-lapse because I figured you'd be more interested in just me talking about it, since that's kind of the point of this series. Anyways, here it is. There's this part here. I thought this could be like a theater or something. And then, of course, this other side on here is a little bit more complete. I'm kind of frustrated with the progress at this moment because it seems like I'm doing a huge amount of work for not much result. But that's to be expected because this is, after all, the sort of awkward teenage stages of the build, where some angles look complete, like over here I've got my posters and stuff, and then there's this walkway which I think looks pretty cool, and then other areas don't look complete, like from this side, for example. It's very bare. These trees are kind of awkward because they're all perfectly spaced and all are very clean down here. I'll need to add some more greenery, but you know, that's the way of building. That happens, right? And we'll get to it eventually. It's going to be a long process, but you know what? We're committed. Anyways, regarding the theme of this episode, I want to talk about my ramps over here, you know, and this thing. This thing's like a little security thing. You press the button and it calls security to your location. There's a little light on the top. Okay, these ramps. What are they about? So what I wanted to do when I built these ramps is make these so that wheelchairs could get up and down them pretty easily. Now, of course, we're ignoring sort of the, you know, the block, you know, the steppy nature, come on, Kian, of these ramps. We're just going to pretend that this is a smooth slope. There we go. But I was second guessing myself because I was wondering, is this still too steep? So I had a talk with my dad, who is a geotechnical engineer, and I asked him, what is the ideal slope for a wheelchair ramp? And he told me a 5% grade. Okay, Kian, well, what's a grade? I'm glad you asked, viewer person you. So a grade is the percentage of the horizontal distance a slope will go up. And I understand that's a little bit complicated to kind of decipher on its own, so let's look at some examples. So this, for example, these stairs, this is a 100% grade because the height of, you know, per meter is the exact same as the distance traveled horizontally per meter. So every time I go 1 meter that way, I go 1 meter up. This, for example, is a 50% grade because for every 2 meters I go up there, I go 1 meter up, which is 50% of 2 meters. This, which is my slope on my most gentle ramp, which is in there, is a 25% grade. And what I've got over here is a 5% grade. So, we've got a little bit of work to do because this is not going to fit over here. But I'm gonna try and make something that is, you know, 5%, at least excusable as a 5% grade in this area and for every other service on this campus. So I'm gonna try to get some kind of wheelchair ramp where you can go from here to the dorm rooms. Okay, so that's our challenge. It's a bit of a tough one because, you know, I didn't exactly build this around 5% grades. Like I said before, Minecraft is a little bit deceiving with its size, so I didn't really think to account for that sort of thing. So in reality, this campus, if transported somehow to real life, would be huge in the vertical direction. Don't mind the tree. So now that we've got our challenge set out, I want to explore my other sort of accessibility points. So we've got that area over there, which we're going to need to retrofit with a 5% grade, and we've got this kind of building over here, which I want to extend to this point here. Now, why are we retrofitting our fancy castle campus with a modern piece of architecture? Well, you see, I want to add a bit of an elevator system over here. It's a ramp. I'm very proud of this ramp. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to come up with this design. And honestly, it's kind of not great because you have to walk so damn far. But you know what? It's kind of, hard to avoid that considering the high elevation change. However, if you have any suggestions for maybe how I can make this better, not as long somehow, I don't really know, let me know. I would like to make this ramp better if I can, but as it stands now, it's here to stay, and I really enjoy the way it looks. So there's that. I'm gonna put some kind of greenery in here, and I'm still figuring out what lamps I'm gonna use. So I'm going to be placing them around for a little bit just to see how they feel, and if they feel awkward still, I'm going to replace them with something else. Anyways, you're probably wanting to see what I actually built during the time lapse. Here it is. And here's how it works. So you go in here into the void of complete darkness, and you walk up, you go, I was going to say walk upstairs, but that would defeat the purpose. You go in and there's going to be 2 elevators, and they're going to come out at the top here. So, elevator 1, elevator 2. Probably going to have a lot of the student body coming through here. Of course, the student body that doesn't live in the campus housing, instead of climbing up the stairs, because even able-bodied people are going to have trouble with this many stairs, I imagine, which is why there are 2 elevator shafts and not 1. Now, obviously, disabled folks get priority here, so, if this were a real university, that would probably be posted outside or something. Anyways, so as you walk in here, you get this little, grove. I think it looks pretty cool. This is how the whole sort of plateau is going to be covered once I'm finished with the structures. I just thought I'd do some sort of sample here just to see how it feels. And honestly, I'm really fond of it. Every angle I look at it, I really enjoy how much the space is filled. I don't think there's anything that's too open, but it's also not overly busy. I don't want to make this completely overrun with greenery and stuff, or it's going to feel like, a wildlife sanctuary, when really this is a developed area. So you walk in here, and this is going to be sort of like the main entrance hall for the university of sorts, and then you come out onto one of 2 exits on the other side. We've got this exit down here, and there's this other exit over here. Now, I'm still working on the details. This exit was originally just like a single block wide door, but I figured since it's more of like a main entrance now, that it would benefit from being wider. So, I just kind of carved a hole in there and left this piece of trim hanging. I kind of like it like that, so I might keep it that way, but, it's not exactly well thought out. Anyways, I wanted to talk about what we're going to do next, because we've got most of the campus technically accessible by wheelchair at this point, except for the dorms. But besides that, yeah, the entire campus is pretty much accessible. However, it's not ideal. Having one ramp over here and having, one building with presumably a ramp inside over here isn't going to help a person in a wheelchair much if they start all the way over here. And that's kind of a big problem, right? It's not, what are we going to do? Expect them to go, okay, well, I want to get to a class in this area here. Maybe there's a door here at some point. They want to get to a class here. Well, they can't just, go up the stairs, so they have to go all the way around, up through here, down this dirt path is just probably pretty hard to go on with a wheelchair, and to this ramp, then they go up the ramp, and they go all the way over here. And then they get to their class, and the class is over because they've taken so long, and they're out of breath, and it really sucks. So, what I want to do is I want to install some more ramps in other parts of this campus. You know, just one ramp is nice, but just because something's technically accessible doesn't really mean it's accessible. You know, something to be accessible means people who, for example, aren't able to move as well can still have equal opportunity to get to the places where they need to go as people who can move fine, like me, like my character. I can walk around just fine. So for that to be the case, we need to have accessibility everywhere, not just isolated in one spot. So yeah, that's my next thing to do. I'm going to retrofit the parts of the campus I have with more ramps and stuff. We're going to figure out a way to get a player from here to over there on a ramp. And yeah, and then as we build the castle, the other castle, we're going to continue to retrofit that area. I'm being really long-winded, but I think this is an important thing to touch on. And don't worry about the back here. We're pulling another green on this one. This will be for a future day. I don't really want to work back here right now. Okay, so I know what you might be thinking. Kian, this is not a 5% grade. This is much steeper than a 5% grade. What the heck? And yes, it is. But I think there's a certain suspension of disbelief kind of required for when we're talking about paths and not something that's explicitly a ramp or a staircase that kind of maybe allows us to have a path like this. You know, given how this isn't something that's a perfect slope like that, it kind of implies that this is sort of more of just a hill rather than some set of steps or a perfect ramp. However, I'm willing to flatten this hill down, and there's definitely things we can do to make this a 5% grade. I just thought I'd talk about it for a little bit. I'm not completely sure if I want to keep this as is yet, but I thought I'd talk about it anyways. Paths aside, here is one of the ramps that I've been working on. Like the other one, it is still very long and not great, and it does kind of look tacked on, unfortunately. However, I think it's as good as I can make it right now. Again, if you have any suggestions for how I can do this sort of thing better, please let me know. I'd love to improve. And then over here, I've got my other ramp sort of thing over here. Now this one is pretty ugly, and I've actually done it twice. I'll go over the first model that I did over here. And the reason I discarded it is because it starts all the way on the right over there, which wasn't very helpful in this situation where if you're going up this ramp, I mean, you don't want to go all the way over there just to go up the ramp again. So I thought I'd put the entrance of the ramp in a more central space and kind of renegotiate the curves, and I ended up with this. It's still not great like the other one. It definitely doesn't really suit the area. However, I think it works just fine aesthetically, honestly, because if you imagine public spaces, a lot of times ramps like this are a little bit of a sore thumb or toe sticking out. And so I actually kind of agree with this one. I like it a lot. And then over here, I just kind of extended this area. It's weird. I didn't see a reason to put in a ramp considering it's just one block, so I just made the whole thing a ramp. Really, what I could have done is just lower this whole section down by one, but I don't want to do the work associated with that, so we've got this instead. You know, chide me for being lazy, but this is the way I've put it. Maybe I can change it if enough of you protest. Anyways, what's this over here? It's a castle, but it's very bland, and yeah, that's my main concern with it. I'm not actually sure if I want to keep it. I just started building the castle, and it turned into this. And honestly, out of all the structures I've done so far, it is probably my least favorite. Not because I don't like the structure itself, but I feel like it doesn't fit very well with the cliff. I think nothing shows this better than this area right here. You see, I've been avoiding diagonals for a long time with this project. I haven't done any diagonal building, and it's beginning to show, especially with this diagonal here. Because in real life, there would probably be a wall like that. I mean, why do some kind of curve like that to leave this space open. What else are you going to do with this space? It seems kind of weird just to leave this be. So either I'm going to fix this wall up and do something with it, or I don't know, remodel the castle entirely, or maybe fill that with something important. In any case, that sort of feeling kind of extends through the rest of the castle, and I just feel like it's a little bit lazy to do, especially considering I copied the main building twice. That being said, though, I still kind of like it in a way. I mean, this is my favorite angle. I really like the way it looks here, and I've started to kind of texture and detail, so maybe my opinion on this castle will change in the future. Anyways, I have done quite a lot of work here, and it's been quite a while since I've released my last video. I think my last episode in this series is from over a month ago at the time of this recording, so I'd like to get one out pretty soon if I can. But before I wrap the video up, I have one final question. If you are disabled physically or anything, or not disabled, and you have something in public spaces, accessibility-wise or whatever, that helps you exist in that space, let me know what that thing is and how it helps you, and if I can, I will try to emulate those sorts of things in the game, in this campus and around the city. One of my goals with this city is to make it realistic, and in doing so, I need to make it realistically usable. And of course, with usability comes accessibility, and so I'd like to implement as many accessible features that I can, so that I can make this city as friendly for the people who don't live in it, because there's no people, as possible. So, with that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and have a nice day.